Uh-oh, the bike's laying down on its side. You know what this means? This means surgery. And what are we doing today? That's right. We're getting a clutchectomy. Today's video, we're going to install the Rekluse Radius clutch. Why are we doing this? Blah, blah, blah. Everybody always wants to know that. That's a good question. A lot of people like to talk about how the 450L flames out and it's not good in technical terrain and it stalls all the time. It's not the bike's fault. The bike is a 4-stroke. And if you know anything about technical riding and 4 strokes and trying to go slow, right, the piston only fires every other time. So unlike a 2-stroke, which is constantly, you know, bang, 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 4 strokes aren't. They're bang, and then there's a pause and a bang. And if you catch a rock in that pause, it's just going to stall. The other thing that you have to get used to is this is the Unicam motor. It's a racing motor, you know. I think a lot of people are coming from DRZs and KLRs and blah, 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 and they don't quite understand that this motor has very, very little rotational mass. That's why a lot of people put a 7-ounce weight on the flywheel to help it not stall, give it a little bit of more momentum. There we go. Give it more momentum so that it can catch the next cycle and fire again. A lot of your other dual sport motorcycles have dual sport engines in them. This does not. This has a racing engine. Titanium valve, super light and flippy. It's detuned a little bit, so it'll last a little longer. But at its heart, it's still a racing engine. So that's the other problem with why these bikes stall. And then, in my opinion, another reason why they stall is people just aren't used to the throttle because it has that really hard on-off. So unless you get rid of that, unless you put in like a Vortex ECU, you can add the 7-ounce flywheel weight, you can do whatever. Unless you get rid of that, it's really easy to stall the bike because you're not trying to, as you come up on a rock or a ledge, you don't want to hit it so hard you dent your tire or flip yourself over backwards. So people tend to be a little gun shy on the throttle. I believe that's another reason. A whole lot of reasons why these bikes stall. All bikes stall. But one thing, if you're going to do like a woods or a trail ride and you want to make your bike into that sort of bike, something to go a really long, long way to keep you from stalling the bike when you're in technical terrain and going slow is to put the Rekluse clutch in. Again, it's an automatic clutch. It doesn't shift for you. All it does is disengages the clutch when you get under a certain RPM. So what that'll do is as you get too slow and you're about to stall, right, you're not moving forward anymore, the clutch will disengage for you. If you're really good with a clutch, you don't need any of this stuff. If you cover that clutch all the time, and you're really quick on pulling it in and taking away power and getting your RPMs back up, you don't need this. I am not that fast sometimes. When I get into real rocky terrain, I'm almost always stalling this poor thing. And that's all me. That's on me. While we're thinking about this, there are also a couple reasons not to put in an auto clutch. The biggest one, the probably most obvious one, is that you can no longer bump start your bike. So if your starter fails, you're done. If your battery dies, you're done. To me, that's a non-issue, right? I drive my truck, I drive my cars, I've driven them everywhere. I've never worried about my starter failing. They just don't. Your battery is another matter, however. And if you're really worried about it, then you just carry one of those one of those little jump start battery thingies. And the other thing to keep in mind is that, I don't know if you've ever been stuck on a hill somewhere, or you can't get back on your bike on an up or a downhill, so you put it in gear, right? And that basically locks the back brake up for you. It just through engine compression, it just keeps the tire from spinning. And that's how you get back on or manage to claw your way back onto your motorcycle. Been there. With the Rekluse clutch, because the bike's not moving, the clutch is disengaged, so you can't do that anymore. You're going to have to be able to cover your rear brake somehow. Those are the two obvious ones that come to mind right away. And the biggest issues. You can't bump start your bike anymore, and not without like pulling the whole thing apart and doing some mojo on the inside. And you can't use your clutch as well for engine braking. So if those two things are really important to you, then don't get it. Don't get the Rekluse. Anyways, we're going to find out how important they are to me. I'm all about ready, fire, aim. Why the Radius CX as opposed to any of the other ones? If you go on their website, you'll see they have a Radius, I think it's the X or the C, but it's not the CX. The difference mainly is in how automatic a clutch it is and what parts come with it. And one of the things I really liked about the CX was, other than it has a really cool clutch cover, is it also comes with its own, right, its own holder. So it just kind of does everything, right? And if you haven't noticed, I usually don't skimp too much on the bike, so I just went with the CX. So there's a ton of videos on there about how to put these clutches in. I'm going to make another one. Mine will be specific to the 450L, and I believe the 450X is the same clutch. Okay, with all that said, let's get to installing this thing. Step one, right, is lay your bike down in a in surgery position. There we go. Step one is complete. All right, the next couple steps, so you got the bike put in 5th or 6th gear, right? It's laid over. You've got oil. You've got an oil pan because the clutch plates and the friction discs are going to need to soak in oil. We've got something laid underneath to catch whatever. I've got everything around your clutch cover cleaned off so nothing falls in there. And then we're going to loosen this. It's not going to come out. We're just going to crack it open. And then we're going to pull the cover off next. Remember, we're going to loosen this. It doesn't actually have to come off. Okay. 8mm ratchet. There we go. All right. Take note of this rubber gasket. We're going to reuse that. Next, we're going to remove the pressure plate screws. All right, I wasn't planning on cheating, but I'm going to anyways. There we go. That looks pretty good. All right, next we're going to take out the stock clutch pack. Switch this around. All right. All right, and then there's a spring. And then there should be a seat below that for the spring. There we go, and there's a seat for that spring we just took out. So next is you're supposed to inspect these tangs and make sure they're not notched, which this is not. I mean, it's brand new basically. Okay, next comes the throat assembly. All right, we're going to set that aside. That's going to get reused. All right, big old screwdriver. So you can see where these are bent up. This little retaining washer. I'm going to knock the tabs down on that. All right, grab your big 28mm socket, and it says to use an impact wrench, but I don't have an impact wrench that big. There we go. I'm going to remove the nut. And there's the tab, and then there's a washer underneath. All right, now we're going to pull out the center hub. Okay, once you have the center hub out, there's a thrust washer. Oh, there it goes. All right, make sure you separate those. You need this. I'm going to put that back in so I don't lose it. Okay, so here are your drive plates and your friction discs and the EXP disc for your new clutch pack. So I'm just going to lay these guys in. They say to soak them in your oil, get them nice and wet, both sides, for about 5 minutes before you install them. So we're going to work it this way. Right, and that get good and gooey. Okay, so they give you a couple bags to soak your friction and your discs in. I put mine in here, right, and then made sure that both sides were pretty well soaked. And from there, I'll put them in here. So we'll just dump some in here. There's actually another bag that came with it, but that bag ended up having a hole in it, so we're going to put everything in here, keep it wet. Like I said, you have to soak this for 5 minutes so the oil soaks into the friction discs really well. Again, I really like the idea of doing each one individually and smearing it on first. And then I'll let it sit in the bag like so for a couple minutes. And every once in a while I'll go back and check and flop it around. Okay, one more time we're going to make sure that that thrust washer's in there. And there it is. And I'm going to drop the Rekluse inner hub in. All right. paying attention to where the little locking pin is. Next we're going to drop in the Rekluse tab lock washer, and you see it's got these little wings. The wings face down and go into those little holes. Right, and next comes our clutch nut. And that's going to go on, and that's going to get torqued to 50 foot-pounds. All right, so 50 foot-pounds, here we come. Now we're going to bend these tabs up, and we're going to use a pair of chain locks. I just want to get them started a little bit. The next thing we're going to install are these basket sleeves, and basically they'll make the inside edges of these notch proof by adding steel instead of the aluminum. And these guys just go in like so, and they just sit there. That's pretty much it. Here's all your different clutch plates. That's the EXP, and then you've got a couple that are a little different, right? So these all have different names and different functions. And here, give me a second. So they all have different names and different functions, and on the instructions it's going to look like this. So as you come through, you're really going to have to pay attention, like this one here with the wider friction plates on it, right? There's a third one from the top. So just pay attention. They all, when you're just looking at them sitting here in the oil, they all kind of look the same. There's a few that have a few slight differences. It's all your friction discs. Right, that one we just pointed out with the wide ones. Then you have a couple of these drive discs. So this one has little wavy edges on it. All right, that doesn't. My whole point here is just pay attention to what the disc looks like and how they describe it on that little manual thing, and how they describe it on the instructions. Because if you just slap them in, they all really look pretty much the same. The differences are really subtle. The first one is just a regular steel drive plate. If I can get it to drop in. It's hanging up on these, there we go. There's probably some mechanics trick that the Rekluse guys know all about. I should have gone and watched their video. There we go. Okay, so there's a steel drive plate. It says that goes in first. Then comes your EXP drive plate. I'm sorry, your EXP disc. Okay, and here's the EXP disc. This is basically a centrifugal clutch. I don't know if you can see it. There's little weights on the inside, and when your engine spins, it throws this out, and it's a wedge. See how it spreads it open? So that actually engages your clutch. And then another drive disc. Now, pay attention, these things stick together. Sometimes you have two and you don't know it. Here we go. And now we're just going to alternate between the drive disc, a steel drive disc, and a friction disc. So next is a friction disc and a drive disc. And I've already separated out the weird ones, right? The steel drive disc with the wavy edges, and the friction disc that has the kind of the big pads on it. And these little basket things really make this a pain in the butt. Now, here's a good example. You think that's one, but that's really two that are really stuck together. So we ended in a friction disc. The next one is the wavy one. Right, with the waves. The next one after that is the wider internal diameter friction disc, which is this one, right? Because those, I don't know if it shows up on the camera, but they're wider than the regular ones. Oop. Make sure you get them in the right spot. Next comes, apparently, is your judder spring, which is this guy. Remember that? So the judder spring in the seat. This just wants the judder spring. Doesn't say anything about the seat. It says cup side up. So this has a little bit of a cup going that way. And that drops right in there. And then cap it off with your final steel drive plate. Here is something to make note of. You can, on the CX, you can either adjust your clutch gap internally by changing all this stuff around, or externally, which is basically how you normally adjust your clutch lever. One of the advantages of doing it externally from your clutch lever is that you can bump start it. Basically, you're going to adjust it till it's where it should be, and if you have to bump start your bike, you're going to just totally screw that adjustment up so your clutch is on all the time, basically, give or take. They recommend doing it internally. I'm sure it goes out of adjustment way less than actually when it's up on your perch, etc., etc. That's the way I'm going to do it. Again, I'm not super worried about bump starting my bike. Maybe I should be, I don't know, but I'm not. So from here, we're going to go to set the installed gap internally. Okay? So just so everybody's aware, there are two different ways to set this, and one allows you to bump start your bike if you have to. Okay. Okay, so this is the setup state. This is not the final. We're not going to put the throw out in because normally that would go in here. All right, we're going to put the pressure plate in. We're going to put the springs in. Make every other one the right color. Right? I'm not torquing these down to anything specific. I'm just torquing them down so that we can set our gap. What it says is using the adjustment notches, turn it counterclockwise until it stops. What they're talking about is this silver ring right here. Can you see? I think it shows up on the video. This silver ring here, it moves. So you turn that counterclockwise until there, until it comes to a stop. Right? And that's where you start from. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the bolts back out. Of the bolts. We're going to take the springs back out. All right, we're going to take the springs out. Take the pressure plate off. Oop. I got stuff sticking to it. There we go. Take the pressure plate off. Okay, so choose the D10. I guess it doesn't matter which one. Across the hub and the adjustment ring. There we go. Basically, we're marking the adjustment ring, which is this guy right here, and a starting point. So we're going to start there and we're going to turn it one turn counterclockwise. If I can, nope, and they ran into that. Right, my mark's right there, in case you can't see it on the camera. I'm going to turn that one full counterclockwise. Now it says start at the reference mark and turn it clockwise 2 D-tenths past your mark on the hub. So basically it's going to go from here, it's going to go 1, 2. Right? Now we lock it in place with this little guy here. Oop. And come on. Oh, there we go. Okay. Now that can't spin, right? And reinstall the throw out. Okay, now we're going to put the pressure plate back on, like so. And then now it says to alternate the springs. So gold, red, gold, red, gold, red, right? And then these guys all get torqued to 9 foot-pounds, but I'm going to at least set them to the bottom gently with the torque wrench alternating, right? As gently as you can with a impact driver. All right, set that to 9 foot-pounds, and oop. And 9 foot-pounds is not a lot. Okay, so here's the Rekluse cover. It has a groove for the OEM O-ring. Okay, so here's the Now we're going to check free play gain. So get your clutch lever to where you normally like it, whatever that looks like. However much free play you like, wherever it engages. I set mine so that it's completely disengaged when it smacks my finger. And that's the only thing I worry about. Okay? So you're going to set that. You're going to do a girth hitch. You could get this rubber band in the kit. You're going to do a girth hitch around your handlebar, and then you're going to hook it to your clutch lever. Right? That's going to take out all your free play. And then you're going to rev your bike up. And while you do that, you're going to watch the lever. Right? And it's going to come back about that far. There you go. So when it came all the way back here, right, that's the auto clutch working. And again, that's in neutral. Let it warm up for a couple minutes, put it neutral, do the rubber band thing, and watch it move. If it does that, you're probably fine. Okay, so here's their break-in. Their braking procedure, right? Bike in neutral, hand off the lever, rev the engine 10 times. Sure, I've done that. With the engine still running, pull the clutch lever, shift the bike into first gear, slowly release it, right? Should have a slight amount of creep forward. And then you're going to do some real easy starts, and then without using the clutch lever, start in second gear, then accelerate, and then recheck your free play gain after that. All right, so the Rekluse is all installed, and here's what you have to get used to. All right, so I've got everything going. I've gotten the clutch broke in. So here, let me just show you quick. If you've never seen a Rekluse clutch, basically, again, it's an auto clutch. And by that I mean that right now, I'm going to put it in first gear just so you can see it. It's first gear, that's the clutch is out, right? It's engaged, it's pulling the bike forward real slow, so it's engaged a little bit, but not much. So right now those wedges on that EXP plate are in. And as soon as I turn the RPM up on the bike, they'll go out and they'll engage the clutch for me. So I'm going to take off and then come back and stop and show you what stopping looks like. So here goes go. Right? Pulls out really nice actually. Right? I'm going super slow. Look. No clutch. Right? No clutch. I'm on the brake. Coming to a horrible stop. Again, no clutch, and I stop. So it's really hard to stall the bike. It's not impossible, but it's very hard. And that's basically it. If you want to shift, so that's first. Here's second gear. I can pull out in second if I want. There again, I'm stopping again. It's still in first gear, so if I put the kickstand down, it'll it'll shut the bike off because it's still in gear. And there we go. That's basically it. Now it does not shift gears for you, right? You still have to go up and down, and because it doesn't disengage the clutch per se, you should still pull the clutch in as you're shifting gears. Basically, the only thing it'll do for you is keep your bike from stalling when you're doing really, really slow speed stuff. Okay, that's it. All right, as always, thanks for watching.